Hi, I'm Father Anthony Hannon from Enviam Patches, and this is To Prepare His Way. Oh my God! Is that a sin? Is that a sin to utter the words, oh my God? Many times when penitents will come to confession, they will confess that they broke the second commandment, that they used the Lord's name in vain. And often I'll say, in what way did you use the Lord's name in vain? Did you stub your toe and call out His name in an irreverent way? Well, that is a sin. His name is to be praised, not to be used as a curse word. Or did you use His name to control, manipulate, shame, or humiliate somebody? That would be a sin. So that would be things like, you want to control a child or a group of children, say you're a teacher or something, and you say, okay, I'm leaving now, kids, but don't forget, God is watching you, so don't misbehave. Well, that's misusing God's name. His name is not to be used to control or to shame children like that, right? Yes, it's true, God is always watching us, but He's not watching us like to make sure that we behave. He's always watching us because He can't get His eyes off us because He's so madly in love with us. That's the proper sense. So that's misusing God's name, or using my authority, misusing my authority, right? Abuse of authority, and I, bawl someone out, like publicly, and there's the priest, doing that. That's not good. That is a sin against the second commandment. Any abuse of authority like that. But more often than not, the penitent will say, "Oh, I said OMG," oh my God. Oh, how many times? Since your last confession, last week, last month, whatever it was. And usually they'd say, oh, I don't know, lots of times, too many to count. In other words, it's become a habit for them. Well, remember, a habit is not a sin. It might be something you want to change, you want to break that habit. It might not be a good thing, but, a mortal sin is a serious matter. Now, breaking the Ten Commandments is a serious matter, and you have to do it with full knowledge and with your free will. So you say, man, this is really bad, I shouldn't do this. Well, I know it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then you do it anyway, and then you do it. Well, then that is, a mortal sin. That is something you need to go to confession to be forgiven of. But, habit is kind of more automatic, and it probably doesn't, reach that level of mortal sin. A lot of times, OMG, oh my God, is used kind of just as an expression of an emotion, a surprise or a wonderment, or maybe even seeing a tragedy, right? So, in these television shows where they're doing renovations or something, the room's all finished, and now they're going to show the owner of the house the new room, and they say, okay, well, close your eyes, and then they bring them into the room and say, okay, open your eyes, and 9 times out of 10 on these shows, they say, oh my God. And, they're amazed or something. Maybe they're disappointed, but they'll still say, oh my God, all right? Or, someone says, oh, here's my new puppy, or my little baby. Oh my God, that's so cute, or something like that. Or maybe you witness an accident. Oh my God. And, it's kind of a lazy way of expressing emotion. And again, it's probably just a habit. Something that I think should be tried to change, but, probably not that serious of a sin. Now, one of the ways of understanding, thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain, is to not call on His name for no good reason. And saying, oh my God, is kind of like that. So, although St. Paul instructs us to pray always, and this is why, in the Eastern Catholic and Orthodox churches, there's often this, this devotion, this practice of praying kind of in your mind and in your heart, in the background, the Jesus prayer over and over again throughout the day. You see this with the monks, monasteries, and whatnot. Lord, and sometimes they even have prayer beads to help them. And the Jesus prayer is, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, have mercy on me, a sinner, or some variation of that. So even they're having a conversation with someone, but in the background they're thinking that. Or just, who are you talking to in your thoughts throughout the day? And we ought to be developing, as mature Christians, a personal prayer life, or your stream of consciousness. You should be practicing the presence of God and trying to have a conversation with him. For a lot of times, people say, oh my God, and they have not been thinking of God. They have not been thinking of Christ. They've not been in conversation with him or any of the saints or anything like that. Maybe they haven't even done their morning offering yet. And throughout the day, they say, oh my God. And yeah, this is kind of, what should we say, at least rude to God. I'll put it another way. I have a dog. He's my kind of companion, so to speak, right? And sometimes I'll talk to him, give him directions or something like that. But, or ask him if it's, time to eat or things like this. But my dog is a great watchdog. And I don't need a doorbell, because if someone, comes anywhere near the property, my dog starts barking. He's my early warning system, my alarm, right? And a lot of times he'll run over to the door, or one of the doors in the house, and I will go, and sure enough, someone's at the door. But a lot of times nobody is there. And that is frustrating, eh? And it's like, Vicar, that's my dog's name. Don't do that. Don't do that. No one's here. What are you barking at, eh? Smarten up. And then I'll say, come on, let's go over here. And he'll follow me and he'll shut up and stuff like that. But I think he's happy. He's trying to do me a good thing, right? He's trying to let me know, hey, there's a chipmunk outside or something, right? Whatever it is he's barking at. Or there's an owl, a few owls around here. Sometimes they come right in the backyard, eh? And so when they hoot, my dog barks a lot. And I could imitate it and he would bark, but he's being nice and quiet now, so I'm going to leave him. So, calling on God's name, just saying, oh my God, and you have no intention of praying to him, it's kind of like that. When I was a teenager, I had a lot of friends. They had a really great sense of humor. And I remember sometimes someone might say, Jesus Christ, eh? And they'll say, yes. They'll get right in their face. Yes? What is it? What are you doing? Get out of my face. No, you called on me. I'm Jesus. That's my name. They're trying to make a point, right? They're making a point. Sometimes it had an effect on them, and maybe they would try to curb that a little bit, eh? And people would they just say Jesus. Oh, that's not good either, right? So they might say, geez, or geez whiz, or gee whiz, or cheese whiz. That was a big one when I was a teenager and a kid even. People say cheese whiz all the time. Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of a laziness to express some sort of emotion, negative, positive, whatever, along the map there, the spectrum of emotions. But really, they're saying Jesus, and they're just kind of cutting it short. So again, it's a habit to break, more because you're just being lazy with your language, right? Why don't you kind of learn how to express your feelings a little bit more accurately, or a little bit more appropriately. Related to this, a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh my gosh. Well, it's the same thing as saying, oh my God. Because somewhere or other they got into a habit of saying, oh my God, and they don't want to do that because they think it's a sin, so they say, oh my gosh, instead. But what does the word gosh mean? No, it's a replacement for the word God. So again, I think, is it a sin? Probably not, but I would say, a good habit to break. Good habit to break. Now, there's another way that is really misusing God's name, using God's name in vain. And that is when people call on his name to be their witness, or to add kind of weight to what they're saying. So if someone says, honest to God, this is the way it happened, or honest to God, I'm telling you the truth. Well, that's using God's name in vain. That's misusing his name. You're calling on God to be a witness, or to put weight behind what you're saying. And needless to say, if you're lying and you say honest to God, that's a real big sin, right? But that is a sin, to say honest to God and call God as your witness. And related to this, and usually these are serious Catholics or serious Christians, often because of charismatic influences, the charismatic renewal within the Catholic Church, or maybe Protestant evangelicals or Pentecostals will speak like this. And they're always saying the Lord this, the Lord that, the Lord this, the Lord that. Well, I'm glad that the Lord is on their mind and heart, and is front and center of their life. But often they'll say things like, "Well, I prayed about this, and the Lord wants me to do this," or something along those lines, some variation of that. Sometimes I've experienced, over the years, someone coming up to me and say, "The Lord put it on my heart to tell you this," and then often it's something completely out of left field, like, "You should go on a pilgrimage to Rome," or something like that. Are you serious? Are you serious? And sometimes I'd be saying to people, or thinking to say to them anyway, I wish they would meditate on the Lord instead of on me. Like, what is this that they're praying to God and God is giving them messages for me? That's just weird, okay? That's just weird. One time, and I went to the charismatic parish for a few years in my early 20s, and it was a great benefit for me because, I met other guys my age and other young ladies my age who really wanted to do God's will in their life. And that's awesome. And we're all discerning what is God's will for our life. Now, usually, in the broader context, this would be, what is your state of life? Because you're single, so is God calling me to become a priest or to get married, and that type of thing. But often it would come down to more specific things in one's life. Like what is God's will for me in terms of a job or a career or something like that. And so a lot of times people are just praying for God's will. And one time I was at Madonna House. It was my first time ever at Madonna House in Combermere, which is a great place. You can check them out. You can search them on the internet, or I'll talk about them at another time. And anyway, I'm at table, and the way they have it there, they have in their main kitchen, they have like their main dining area, they have tables that have 6 people at them. A bench on 2 sides of the length of the table, so 2 people on each side there. And then at the end of the table, there would be often a Madonna House staff member or long-term guest or something like that, and they would be kind of the server. So if we're getting low on food, they would go get more food, kitchen or anything like that, look after the people's needs at the table. And then at the other end of the table, if there was a priest or bishop, they would be sitting there. If not, it would just be another person. Anyway, I'm sitting at table, and I'm very blessed, very privileged to be sitting at table with Archbishop Joseph Raya, God rest his soul. And if any of you ever met him, I think, holy man, he seems to exude holiness, I think, eh? And he's at table there. And across from me, there's a young lady, I think she's about 18 years old. And she's, we're just having a conversation at the table. And she's telling people that she believes the Lord wants her to become a nurse. And she's applied to such and such university, and the Lord wants her to go to that university in September and stuff like this. Now, because I had been going to the charismatic parish, although, it's kind of a weird way to speak, but I heard that a lot. So I was just listening to her and thinking, well, this is pretty cool. She wants to do God's will, and God has kind of revealed to her what his will for her is in this kind of career path. Well, all of a sudden, Archbishop Raya slams his fist down on the table, and others around the neighboring tables, they all kind of looked around. And Archbishop Raya says, "You young people, you use the Lord's name in vain so much. How do you know what God wants for you? Did he speak to you?" Really mocking like that, eh? He says, "No. You do what you think is best, and if it works out, you take the credit. And if it doesn't, you don't blame God." And then he shut up, and then people started eating, and whatever, the conversation went on. But that really got me thinking. I was 24 years old, and I'm 56 now, so that's 34 years. To be thinking about this, about misusing God's name. So I think we, just be careful of that. I know there are many serious Catholics watching this, and just be careful how you do that, because it goes without saying that you're praying to God, okay? You don't have to be telling people, I received this message in prayer or something like that. It's kind of like saying, it's kind of like it's kind of like you don't want anyone to say, you really want to do that, or something like that. You don't want to enter conversation, or maybe it's almost like, it almost seems like a virtue signaling, like, I pray and God speaks to me and this is what he wants me to do. You know, and I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just saying that's really, think about that in the context of the second commandment. I don't think that you should be doing that. In many ways, one of those things I can't change. There's tons and tons of people, they talk that way, and better they talk that way than cursing and swearing. But just be careful. Just be careful about that. I'll give you a kind of a negative example of that. One time, so back around that same time, I was in my 20s, I wanted to talk to this other fellow about stuff that's going on in the parish and the way that I thought that we could work together to, help evangelize people and stuff like that. And so I just went up to him one day and I said, hey, I'd like to go for a coffee with you someday. And, it's just a way of saying, I want to chat with you, right? That's all it meant. And he throws up his hands and he says, oh, I don't hear the Lord telling me that. I didn't say anything, but I'm like, really? Really? Like, why do you have to bring God into this? Like, if you don't want to go to Tim Hortons with me, just say, no, man, I'm too busy. Or, yeah, maybe someday. That would be a nice, polite way of saying it. But to say, the Lord hasn't told me this, what the Lord tells you, like what to do at every step. The Lord tells you who to speak to. God tells you what breakfast to eat in the morning. Like, I don't get that. That was just a rude way of taking God's name and saying, you're not worth my time. And it's very insulting. So be careful not to do that, right? Don't become, so holier than thou that you're using the Lord's name all the time to kind of justify everything that you do or do not do. Now, related to all of this, I know this video is getting a little bit long, but if you're with me this long, I hope that you're finding this beneficial, at least intriguing. Relating to this is something else. It's not a sin against the second commandment, but because they're not using God's name or the saints or holy objects or something like that. But this is just under the category of vulgar language. So, 4-letter swear words, right? Now, I'm not talking about like the French here in Canada, often so sad, so heartbreaking. They use like holy objects from Mass or from the church to swear. That is definitely a sin against the second commandment. But, just the, kind of vulgar base language words, 4-letter words, that type of thing. They don't have to be 4 letters, but you know what I mean. And I'm just going to say this to you who are disciples of Christ, that language is unbecoming. That language is beneath you. Break that habit. The Christian should not be using foul language. Now, I understand that under, what should we say, a certain class of people, that's, if people are living on the street. When I finished grade 13, I went out west, and a lot of times I was a transient worker. A lot of times I was like living on the street, so to speak. Okay, I wasn't begging for money, but I was pretty hungry most days, and I was coming very close to it. Going down to the soup kitchen, and I was living with a lot of street people. Okay, I lived in an abandoned house for a week, for example. That's a whole other story. But people would use bad language like that, so I was around that all the time. And that language came out of my mouth. I mean, I was only 18, but I was not one to swear, to use bad language ever in my life. But that was the language that I started to speak because I was hanging out with those people. Okay, so you got to be careful who you're hanging out with and be very aware of this. But the reason I say this is beneath you is because you're baptized. You are a son or a daughter of God. You are part of the royal family. You have a high dignity. So, if the Queen of England used foul language, you feel like, what is that? Right? Or a king, or a prince, or a princess. This language is beneath them all. Now, I realize in our modern day, there may be some princes who we've heard or use bad language or something, but that's really beneath them, and they're forgetting who they are. And it's a real kind of misunderstanding to try to say, well, I'm going to be down with the people, down with the low people, and speak like them. No, don't do it. Raise people up instead of going down to that level. Now, from time to time, I encounter people who are uneducated, and they're always using those words. And, part of it, I think, well, they just don't have the vocabulary to be able to use the right adjective. So they're they're adding emphasis to what they're trying to communicate. But a lot of times they'll say, oh, sorry, Father, you don't swear. I'm sorry, Father, stuff like that. I've said before, when people would curse with Jesus's name, and they say, oh, sorry, Father, or even way before I even went to the seminary, some people knew that I practiced my faith and stuff, and they would, use bad language, or, like I say, curse with Jesus's name, and then they'll say sorry to me, and I'm like, well, I think you need to apologize to Jesus, right? Because you misused his name, not my name, right? Which reminds me of when I was, up till I was about 35 years old, I played in sports leagues, right? Especially softball. And I love baseball, I love softball, and I was not too bad at it. And I was able to play on we'll say, competitive men's league. It wasn't like, a real competitive, we're 20 leagues below professional, okay? But everyone in that league was trying their hardest and everything like that. But there's a lot of guys in the team, and I think it was on all the teams, that they were taking it so seriously, or I think it was kind of an outlet for them. So if they struck out, they'd throw their helmet or throw the bat or curse and swear and all this type of thing. And it's one of the reasons actually why I stopped, because that's not why I just loved the game, and it was recreation for me, and it was exercise for me. So, I didn't need more stress in my life to deal with all of that. But anyways, a lot of times, guys, throughout the league, they would curse using Jesus's name. And sometimes I tried to kind of wake some of the guys up, and I'd say, hey, come on, watch your language. Like, what if I used your wife's name as a curse word, or your girlfriend's, or your mother's? What if I used your name as a curse word? Like, would you appreciate that? I remember one of the guys said, hey, Hannah, just let them vent. Okay, fair enough. I'm a misfit in these places. Anyway, one time I'm coaching first base, and one of our guys gets a hit through the infield, goes to the shortstop's leg or whatever. And so someone on the other team uses Jesus's name as a curse word, and I wasn't going to confront guy on the other team, but I said, yeah, praise Jesus, hallelujah, good hit, hallelujah. I started doing like that. So anyway, I guess standing out like a sore thumb, but I was trying to make a point, and I don't know if it had any effect on anyone or not, but yeah, you don't have to necessarily do what I have done, but yeah, we need to be careful about how we use God's name, or the name, or just the word God. So hope all of these things help. Oh, by the way, if you're in the habit of saying "Oh my God" all the time, a lot of the advice I give is just turn it into a prayer. So if you catch yourself, because you habitually, you saw something that's beautiful, you said, "Oh my God," well, why don't you just, since you've kind of called on God, and He's there, He's listening, He loves you so much, and why not talk to Him? Why not say, "Oh my God, that's a beautiful sunset. Oh my God, that is amazing. Lord, you are great. Praise Jesus." Or if you see a tragedy, oh my God, Lord, help us. Lord, what do you want me to do? Have mercy on that person. Well, Jesus, and have a conversation with Him. Or you can enter into a formal prayer, like the one that comes to mind immediately that begins, "Oh my God," is, a traditional form of the Act of Contrition. What if the next time you said, "Oh my God," you caught yourself and you said, "Oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee. I detest all my sins because I dread the loss of heaven and the pains of hell, but mostly because they offend thee, my God, who art all good and deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve with the help of thy grace to confess my sins, do penance, amend my life, and avoid the occasions of sin. Amen." Wouldn't that be great? Imagine if you were your friends and then you break out in an act of contrition. Don't underestimate the positive effect that you might have on the people that you know. in Viam Pacis, into the way of peace. Remember, the truth will set you free.